As some of you may remember, last Advent I preached, and I started with a few lame Christmas jokes. So I've decided I think this should be a tradition, sort of like, funny Christmas sweaters. So here we go. A little girl climbed into Santa's lap, and Santa asked the usual question, "And what would you like for Christmas?" The child stared at him, open-mouthed and horrified, for a minute, and then gasped, "You didn't get my email?" After being away on business for a week before Christmas, a man thought it'd be nice to return home with a Christmas gift for his wife. So he went to the mall to do a little shopping. "How about some perfume?" he asked the cosmetics clerk. So she showed him a bottle costing $50. "Well, that's a bit much," said the man. So she returned with a smaller bottle for $30. "That's still quite a bit," the man grumbled. Growing disgusted, the clerk brought out a little tiny bottle for $15. The man grew agitated. What I mean, he said, is I'd like to see something really cheap." So the clerk handed him a mirror. I think these were better than last year. So here we are, just 3 days from Christmas. Day after tomorrow is Christmas Eve, where we'll all be watching our new rector navigate the heavy gold cape, called a cope. I know Brother Dennis, he dreads the cope, but Father Thomas is very at ease with it, so we'll see how Jeff does. I don't know about you, but I have really loved the Isaiah scriptures during this Advent season. It becomes so clear how essential they are to the story of Jesus and, of course, the authors of the gospel. Today, Isaiah says, "The Lord himself will give you a sign. Look, the young woman is with child and shall bear a son, and shall name him Emmanuel." And in Matthew, they quote the prophet, "Look, the virgin shall conceive and bear a son, and they shall name him Emmanuel," which we all know means God is with us. We are preparing for the coming of Christ, the annual feast day celebrating Christ being born into our world, and he will be called Emmanuel, God with us. What a joy beyond joy. Our God manifesting into the world to be with us. It's almost too much for us to take in, isn't it? For me, and many people in the world, much of my life was lived with no awareness of God with me. In fact, I felt quite on my own. I felt that I had to achieve through grit and perseverance, unaware of God's love and support for me. Super independent, I left home the day after high school ended. I really lived by the rugged individualism concept, as my grandpa would say, "If you want something done right, do it yourself." It's still a delightful surprise to me living in community when I realize that I can ask for help, that there are more hands and heads to deal with the task at hand. Asking for help was not what I did. I was more likely to say, "I can do this," and struggle through. Yesterday, I helped out with the garland creation and talk about a community effort. Clearly, something of this beautiful magnitude takes many hands, hearts, and heads. And I want to thank all of the men and women who show their love, spending a Saturday making our church so beautiful, especially Julie Kennedy, our beloved senior warden. Now I'm learning to ask God, to trust in God not only being with me, but invested in my well-being. I don't think of God as doing my bidding, but rather we're co-creating life. And the more I learn to lean into this, the better my life has become. Father Thomas Keating, the late Trappist monk, wrote this about Christmas. Now is the time of salvation. Now is the time when the whole of divine mercy is available. Now is the time to risk greater growth. The light of Christmas is an explosion of insight, changing our whole idea of God. Emmanuel, God with us. Let's all close our eyes for a moment and just imagine what this really feels like, that God is with us and will be with us. I invite you to breathe in God's love for you. No matter what the circumstances of your life are today, this truth that God is with us, Emmanuel, is greater. It is greater than illness. It is greater than grief. Greater than any struggle you might be facing. This is the sustaining force of our lives in faith. It is the resilience we can call on when times are tough. And it is the unifying force of love that unites us to all people, no matter what we think might divide us. If we are living in the truth that God is with us, Emmanuel, then we will only be loving. We will only be patient with ourselves and with others. We will only be compassionate to and with our brothers and sisters on this planet. God is with us, Emmanuel. Breathe in this truth and let this be our foundational truth. Let us participate in the divine nature, which is love, by living united to God. What spiritual practice might you commit to in this new year that will continually bring you back to the awareness of God's presence with you? Could you say an active prayer like, I receive your grace, or recommit to a daily centering prayer practice? How could anything be more important? And we will be sustained, comforted, upheld all the days of our lives. The very end of Matthew's gospel has Jesus assuring us of just this. The final words of Matthew are, "And remember, I am with you always to the end of time." And this is no joke. This is the promise of Christ coming, the infinite love of God with us. Amen. Amen.